Welcome in along with Eric Eager. I'm Steve Palazzolo, and this is the best teams in college football through 3 weeks. It's all brought to you by Eckrich, the official smoked sausage of the college football playoffs. All right, Eric, we do this every single week. We discuss the best teams in college football. It's going to look completely different from the AP Top 25, from whatever the playoff committee is going to come up with in a few weeks. Our system's going to break down who the best teams are. There's a little bit of resume in there. There's a little bit of historical context in there. Explain really quickly how we're coming about these rankings, which should look a little unique.
Yeah, there's some prior information about resume, but mostly it's how you play, right? It's exactly how you play against the teams via Pro Football Focus grades, which we know are the best means by which to evaluate college play.
So just to keep it simple, sometimes actually playing better on the field is more important than actually getting the win or the loss when you're just determining who the best team is, not necessarily where we're going to put them in the playoff or in an AP Top 25. Is that right?
Yeah, and we're going to see that a little bit here in the top 10 this week as well. But yeah, exactly. It's process, not necessarily results.
All right, brace yourself. It's going to get good, especially in the top 10. Let's start working backwards in the top 25, though. We have Texas. Texas is back. They're officially back, right? I mean, this is what everybody's been waiting for. All jokes aside, though, very impressive win against USC.
Yeah, we give a lot of weight to beating teams that are highly rated, and USC probably overrated at the beginning of the season. They've fallen, on hard times the past few weeks. Texas throttled them after a slow start. That's why they're in the top 25 this week.
Sam Ehlinger had a good game, Lil Jordan Humphrey, and we see a guy like Chris Boyd at cornerback also having a very good season. The other team of note, Boise State, did not fall out of the top 25 despite a loss to Oklahoma State.
Yeah, they fell 7 spots by losing Oklahoma State. It was a pretty convincing loss there, but we still like them moving forward here.
Let's get into the next grouping, and I think the team that really stands out here is TCU. They're coming off of a loss to Ohio State, but again, the way this whole thing works out, losing to a really good team like Ohio State, not terrible for your ranking here?
Yeah, so for example, having a fumble return for a touchdown on you is a big play. It's worth 7 points, but it's one play out of 150, 200 plays in a college football game. So that's not going to be worth as much to this rating system as it is worth to the scoreboard. And TCU played them tough regardless, and in this particular case, on the backs of a few small plays like turnovers that ended up being touchdowns.
Also see Michigan lurking over there. Don't want to write Michigan off just because they lost to Notre Dame back in week 1. Let's get to the next group, 11 through 15. We have a team like Washington. Again, a tough game, a weird game against Utah, but and we've got the early loss against Auburn. What do you make of Washington's team at this point in the season?
Yeah, I would say Washington probably outplayed Auburn in that first week, right? So they're not going to lose a ton there. But interestingly, against Utah, I think fundamentally they played pretty well. It was a few head-scratching plays by their quarterback, Jake Browning, that made that game closer than it really should have been. And again, in 200-play games, 1 or 2 plays might flip the score, but it doesn't necessarily change the rating system as much as people think.
I do have some concerns about Browning. When he does face pressure, we've seen that in some bigger games against good defenses, will make some poor decisions. I love Washington's secondary, though. Yep. They can cover as well as anybody in the nation.
I'm going to go with a delicate touch, over the treehouse, off the trampoline, through the target. Oh, boom, beat that. I'm about to. I'm going off the rebound net, off the porch column, straight through the target while I go down the slide. You got no shot.
The Eckrich $1 Million Challenge is back. Enter at EckrichFootball.com for your chance to win.
Where's the wind? Yeah, it's really howling out.
All right, let's get to 6 through 10. As we look into the top 10, Eric, we got some explaining to do. Auburn, LSU, then Wisconsin. It's all completely jumbled. Talk us through what's going into the rankings, what's going into these numbers.
Yeah, so to take nothing away from LSU, right? They went on the road and they beat a very good Auburn team. But from the perspective of our grading system, Auburn graded better both offensively and defensively against LSU, and I don't think it's too far of a stretch to say that a 1-point game could have been anywhere from a minus 3-point game to a 3-point game, and we just happened to, given the grades, say that Auburn got the best of that game despite of what happened on the scoreboard.
And what about Wisconsin? Now, they lose to BYU, but they're a team that we've been much higher on, I think, than even some of the other polls, a little bit higher on what Alex Hornibrook can do, and with that run game, offensive line, and defensively, they're still a very good team. So why is Wisconsin even up this high at 9 rather than, in the teens?
Yeah, I think it's the play-by-play grading again. We remember Hornibrook trying to throw an out route and being unable to do it, and it gets intercepted, right? But he throws, anywhere from 20 to 40 passes in a game, and that's just one of those passes. And so, on a per-play basis, he's still one of, if not the most highest graded Big Ten quarterback this season. So in terms of prediction, which is really what this system is trying to do, we're probably still going to buy into Wisconsin here, even after a disappointing loss as 21-point favorites to BYU.
So the way to use the numbers is to just say, look, Wisconsin had a loss, and it's very easy to say, well, they're 2-1. Let's write them off. The same thing I said about Michigan. They lost a game. Let's write them off. But the ranking system will kind of reel you back in and say, okay, don't give up on this team just yet. And we see this in college football every year. There's teams with early losses. Things play out, and the better teams still end up rising to the top.
We forget about those losses later in the year.
You do forget about them. So we'll see if we'll see how Wisconsin makes us look down the stretch. The other thing of note, Clemson at number 6, and then when we get into the top 5, it's Penn State at number 5. What has Clemson done, or what has Penn State done to maybe flip the script here?
Yeah, they struggled against Texas A&M, right? They won by 2, and then this week they didn't beat Georgia Southern quite as well as Penn State did their opponent this week. So in terms of, again, our rating system, they were already close, right? So 5 and 6 may seem like a distance from each other, but in terms of PFF ELO, it's a point or two, and a point or two is basically trivial. So they can sort of flip that just based upon not necessarily both teams win convincingly, but one team wins more convincingly than the other.
I will say this about Clemson. I don't like where they're weak. And they're weak in the back end. Their coverage is one of the worst graded coverage units in the nation among Power 5 teams. And then the pass game still has question marks with Kelly Bryant, Trevor Lawrence, trying to find their way. I do wonder how they're going to make it through the ACC schedule, even with Deshaun Watson at quarterback, even with Kelly Bryant playing pretty well last year. They had some issues. Just getting through an ACC schedule. We'll see what happens this season.
Penn State's quarterback situation is figured out, right? And I think that's a big difference there.
McSorley has graded extremely well for us the last couple of years. He also experienced a ton of drops over there. Elsewhere in the top 10, top 5, Alabama sitting at number 1, pretty clear. I love Georgia at number 2. I love what Georgia's been able to do offensively. What do you make of Bama, Georgia, Oklahoma, Ohio State, and sorting that mix out?
I mean, they're strong where those other teams are weak, right? Throwing the football, Georgia is leading the SEC in expected points generated on early downs, throwing the football. Alabama's not too far back. Tua Tagovailoa has generated a big-time throw on 12% of his dropbacks this year.
Crazy number.
Which is outrageous. His supporting cast has also been terrific. So I think when you look at this top 5, it does look, it's 1 through 5, but really kind of look at Alabama being heads and shoulders above even 2 through 5 there.
And Bama also has the top 2 graded defensive players in the entire country. Go check out our video breaking down the top defensive players in the country. Bama fans will love it. Ohio State fans also might love it as well. That'll do it for us. That is the best teams in college football after 3+ weeks of play. Remember, our breakdown is going to be a little bit different than your traditional top 25, and it's all been brought to you by Eckrich, the official smoked sausage of the college football playoff. And don't forget to pick up Eckrich smoked sausage at your local grocery store for this weekend's tailgate or home gate party. And make sure to visit EckridgeFootball.com for great game day recipes and to enter their season-long $1 Million Challenge.